This is exactly how I would rise from a suffocating 9-to-5 existence into a position of real power if I had to start from nothing again, not with hope, not with luck, but with the cold, disciplined principles that built empires while ordinary men waited for permission to exist. Niccolo Machiavelli once wrote, "Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must compel her." Most people butcher the meaning. They think he's talking about gambling, chance, fate. He wasn't. He was talking about audacity, the willingness to impose your will on an unpredictable world. For years, I lived the opposite way. I played it safe. I obeyed. I showed up early, stayed late, politely swallowed entire meetings where my ideas died in silence. I thought compliance would be rewarded. I believed humility was a virtue. I believed someone would notice my effort and open a door. No one did. And that was the moment I realized the truth. The game I was playing was designed for me to lose, not because I lacked talent, but because I had surrendered the only advantage a man has: control. The first step toward power isn't quitting your job. It's rewiring your psychology. A man imprisoned in his mind remains imprisoned everywhere he goes. Here's the truth. No motivational speaker will ever admit your financial situation is not an accident. It's the inevitable result of the skills you built, or the skills you avoided building because they required you to become someone you weren't ready to be. Machiavelli called this virtue. Not virtue in the moral sense, but the capacity to bend uncertainty to your will. It is the line that separates princes from peasants. It begins with one decision. What will you become exceptional at? When I started, I opened a search engine and typed, "Professions of millionaires." Not billionaires, millionaires. People who built wealth through skill, not inheritance. I wrote down every profession that appeared more than once. Then I asked myself a ruthless question. Which of these could I do for 10 hours a day without feeling like I'm dying inside? Most people skip this. They chase money in fields they despise, then wonder why they burn out before they break through. That isn't ambition. That's self-destruction wearing ambition's clothes. So I built a grid. On one axis, competence, what I could become great at with aggressive focus. On the other, curiosity, what naturally pulled my attention. Where those two overlapped, I found my seat of power. For me, it was entrepreneurship. Not because I wanted freedom or to be my own boss. No, it was something far darker. I could not tolerate another human being deciding my income, my time, or my trajectory. I needed sovereignty, even if it meant risk, failure, or isolation. And here's the part people never tell you. The moment you choose a path that requires you to grow, you will be hated. Not by enemies, by the people closest to you. You cannot build an empire surrounded by people who think like peasants. Your rise exposes their stagnation. Your ambition reflects their mediocrity. Your discipline reminds them of their excuses, so they will mock you, question you, undermine you. Not out of hatred, but out of biological instinct. For most of human history, conformity meant survival. The tribe that stayed together lived. The one who wandered alone was eaten by wolves. So when you break from the pack, they pull you back. Not because they want to stop you, but because your departure threatens the equilibrium of their world. Every great figure, Machiavelli, Napoleon, Caesar, endured a period of psychological exile before their ascent. Not physical exile, though often that too, but the loneliness of seeing a path no one else sees yet. Isolation precedes ascension. But simply cutting people off isn't enough. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you remove those holding you back, you must replace them with minds that pull you forward. So I made a list of 10 people I wanted to learn from. Most were dead, some untouchable, none accessible. But proximity doesn't always require presence. I devoured their works, their interviews, their biographies. I studied their thinking patterns, their systems, their strategy. Not to worship them, to compete with them, to install their operating system into my mind. Admiration without transformation is worship, and worship is for the weak. This is where people misunderstand mentorship. They think mentorship is guidance, hand-holding, encouragement. It isn't. Real mentorship is strategic theft. You extract what you need from those who have what you want. You observe. You imitate. You refine. You execute. Permission is irrelevant. And once I had the right voices shaping my mind, I made the move that separates dreamers from dominators. Machiavelli wrote, "There is nothing more perilous than introducing a new order of things." He was right. Every time you try to become something new, the world resists. You will be tested. If you cannot endure that friction, you will never cross the threshold. People are taught to fear risk, avoid debt, seek safety, and that is precisely why they remain ordinary. Not financially poor, spiritually poor, stuck in a life that is predictable, painless, and purposeless. Debt, used correctly, is not chains. It is a sword, a tool that removes the luxury of hesitation, a force that converts fear into fuel. When I left my stable income to build something of my own, I had no savings, no safety net, just a credit card, an undeveloped skill, and a refusal to remain who I was. I burned the bridges. I made failure more painful than success, and my work ethic exploded, not from discipline, but from necessity. Terror, when channeled, is one of the most potent fuels a man can access. But even with fire, you need direction. Power is useless if you swing it in an empty field. There are rooms in this world where decisions are made, the kind that shape industries and economies. If you're not in those rooms, you live in the aftermath of other people's choices. Most never enter because they think they're not ready. But the people in those rooms aren't smarter. They're simply more comfortable being uncomfortable. So I paid to enter environments that stretched me. Masterminds, dinners, conferences, not expensive ones, strategic ones. Rooms where I was the least accomplished person present. And when I entered, I didn't talk. I watched. How they listened. How they carried themselves. How they framed questions. How they navigated tension. Power respects movement, not potential. You don't enter those rooms to be liked. You enter to be remembered. Most people enter trying to impress, which immediately exposes their insecurity. They talk too much. They force themselves into conversations. They try to prove they belong. And in doing so, they prove they don't. I entered with the posture of a peer, not a beggar. I didn't ask for advice. I shared what I was building and invited perspective. A subtle shift. But everything in power is subtle. And once you enter the rooms of power, you must learn the language power speaks. That language is persuasion. Every empire begins as a pitch. Every revolution begins as a story. Every fortune begins as someone convincing someone else to believe in a vision. Persuasion isn't manipulation. It's the art of aligning someone's self-interest with your goal. If you cannot do that, you will never lead, you will never build, and you will never scale. Most people are terrible at selling because they sell features, not futures. People don't buy products. They buy identity. They buy the version of themselves they wish to become. But there's a deeper truth. You must sell yourself to yourself first. If your belief isn't absolute, your voice will betray you. The uncommitted voice trembles, the committed voice commands. And persuasion is useless without precision. You cannot rule what you do not measure. I learned this painfully. I spent years moving but not progressing, busy but unproductive, ambitious but directionless. Then I took my goal, $1 million a year, and divided it by 365 days. Suddenly the dream became math, concrete, dissectable, achievable. Every day became a binary question. Did I move $2,740 closer to my goal today? If not, I changed my behavior, not my dream. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "Fortune controls half of our actions, but discipline governs the rest." You cannot control the world, but you can control your input and the precision with which you track it. But precision is not enough. Ambition needs fire, and that fire comes from the gap, the distance between who you are and who you could be. Most men see that gap and feel inadequacy. The strong see it as ignition. When I look at who I was 5 years ago, I feel disgust. Not because I was weak, but because I accepted far less from myself than I was capable of. I let fear dictate my decisions. I let comfort dictate my days. I let other people dictate my identity. When I finally rejected that version of myself, everything changed. Not because life became easier, but because I became harder. Machiavelli called this necessità, necessity, the force that turns hesitation into action, potential into power, weakness into steel. When you put yourself in a position where you have no choice but to rise, that is when greatness stops being optional and becomes mandatory. The weak look at the gap and see failure. The strong look at the gap and see fuel. This is the final test, the one that separates those who dream from those who dominate. Hunger, the willingness to endure rejection, discomfort, ridicule, loneliness, fear, and advance regardless. Because deep in your bones, you know the man you are is not yet the man you were meant to be. And here is the truth no one wants to accept. Fortune does not reward the deserving. She rewards the relentless, those who strike with precision, patience, and power, those who understand the game is rigged and learn to rig it back. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to make men moral. He wrote it to make them effective, to strip away illusions and reveal the mechanisms of power. And the first mechanism, the gateway to all the others, is this. You must be willing to do what others refuse to do. If you've made it to this point, you already know you're not like most people. Most would have quit at the first uncomfortable truth. But you didn't, because somewhere inside you, there is a hunger that refuses to die, a voice whispering, "You were meant for more." What I've given you today is the foundation, the psychology, the framework, the laws that govern the ascent from mediocrity to mastery. But there is a deeper level, a level where strategy becomes instinct, power becomes natural, and you stop playing the game because you begin owning it. If you want to go further, if you want to channel this hunger into building systems, creating leverage, generating wealth in your sleep, and establishing dominion, then you must learn the next principle, the law of dominion, not just how to rise, how to rule, not just how to escape the 9 to 5, how to build an empire that outlives you. This is the path of the sovereign, the Machiavellian ascent. And if you're ready to walk it, I'll see you in the next chapter. Fortune favors the bold. Dominion belongs to the strategic.